What is going on, you guys? Alex Chasen back here with a brand new video, and today let's talk about the Houston Rockets. They are one team in the NBA out of a few, but they are one particular team that you have to keep your eye on this season. They could go so many different directions. From the crazy draft capital they have, from the great young core they have, to their really good overall roster, they are primed this season and moving forward to either make a huge splash or grow a fantastic core. But we'll touch on that in a few minutes. First, last season for the Houston Rockets, a much improved year. They go 41-41, 500. No, it was not enough to make the play-in. That goes to the 46-36 Golden State Warriors, who grabbed that 10th seed. But going 41-41 for the Houston Rockets was so improved. The 3 years prior to that, with Coach Stephen Silas, they barely won 20 games all of those years. I think the first year, actually, they won 17 games. And then the final 2 years of his tenure in Houston, they won like 20 and 22 games. No improvement whatsoever when he took over from Mike D'Antoni at the beginning of this rebuild. No improvement. They fire him. Was it a short leash? I don't think so, because they showed no improvement anywhere on that court. So they got rid of him. And they get a perfect coach for the situation they're in right now. Ime Udoka. If nothing happened in Boston, he would still be the coach there. He had a little bit too much fun with a staffer in Boston. He gets fired. He misses that season. And then last summer, the Houston Rockets hire him. What a beautiful decision. Because if it wasn't for, like I just said, him having too much fun in Boston, he would still have a job in Boston. But he gets a job in Houston. And it's perfect. Not only does he coach up the young guys, they brought in some veterans last year, that being Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks. I was a little hesitant on those moves because they threw so much money at those two guys, but they had money to spend, and it worked out so well. Having a really good coach with some veterans around that really good coach to coach up these young guys, and it worked really well with a much improved season. I have the exact standings right here. So the final year of Stephen Silas, they went 22-60. Last year, they take a leap up to 41-41. I don't know off the top of my head, but from last year, that has to be the most improved team record-wise. Of course, the Thunder took one of the biggest leaps from being a play-in out of the play-in team all the way up to the number one seed in the West. But for overall jump in record, that has to be one of the most improved teams from last year, and that's because of Ime Udoka and also bringing in some vets and, of course, the growth from the young guys. But now let's talk about the present and future. We talked about the past. It's time to move on. We're in the present moment right now. This team is scary. Again, I don't think they're a championship team right now. I don't think they're truly a major playoff team right now, but they're for sure a play-in team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak into that 6th seed in the Western Conference. It's just the West is so deep, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but we'll talk about that as the season goes on and how records kind of start forming shape. But as of right now, they're anywhere from that 6th to 10th seed, in my opinion. I don't think they're quite above that yet because they just don't have enough proven guys overall on that roster. Of course, some of the vets are proven, but for the young guys, they're all under 23 years old. The core group of this team is all under 23 years old. That being Alperen Sengun, that being Jalen Green, that being Jabari Smith Jr., that being Thompson, Reed Shepard, Cam Whitmore. All of those names are under 23 years old, and some of them aren't even close to 23. Like a Cam Whitmore is only 20 years old. Some of them aren't even close to being 23. So this team for the Houston Rockets, as of right now, is going to be pretty good. They're going to be competitive because they have vets, a lot of good young guys, but going forward, they could go so many different directions. But let's talk about this season and what I think they could be like. So Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green, obviously, they have not got their contract extensions. The Houston Rockets don't really know what to do in that situation. Jalen Green played really bad last year for most of the season when Sengun went down with his injury and missed the rest of the season. Jalen Green was that main star in that 11-game winning streak I was talking about earlier. He was averaging like 24 points per game. The offense was flowing through him. Everything looked really darn good. But when Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green are on the court together, Jalen Green becomes that second option. Sengun becomes a baby Jokic, baby Sabonis. The offense is running through him. And Jalen Green doesn't look quite as good. So that is one thing we have to keep our eye on this year. Can Jalen Green play like he did in the back end of last season? We know he can become a superstar in this league. He has all the skills and raw talent to be a top 10 player in this league. I don't think he'll ever get there, but he has all that raw ability to his game to be a superstar player. Last year was not really that until the back end of the year, but that's because Sengun went down. So what I need to see from Sengun and Jalen Green, but more Jalen Green, is that he can coexist alongside Sengun, because when he's on the court, the offense runs through him, and I agree with it. But Jalen Green has to be a much better off-ball player. He has to be able to work off the ball, and I don't really think we've seen that from him enough to be like, yeah, he's worth the money for the Houston Rockets. So it's really an experimental year for the Rockets. Yes, they have goals of being a playoff team, but it's also like, who's on this roster for the long term? Who could we possibly package in a trade? And then who's out of here next year? So there's a lot of question marks for the Houston Rockets. When it comes to guys like Jabari Smith Jr., and it comes to guys like Ime Thompson, both of those guys could be stars also. I think Jabari Smith Jr. has, of course, the perfect body type to be a star in the NBA. He's a great rebounder that this team really, really needs. It's great alongside Sengun. He could space the floor because Sengun really can't do that right now. He's a great 1-2 combo with Sengun. I love Jabari Smith Jr. He just has to continue ascending, and we'll see how his game really turns out, because it's still not really where we'd like it to be, but it's definitely growing in the right direction. As for Ime Thompson, he has all the ability in the world to be one of this team's best players. I mean, the man averaged in his rookie season, he averaged around 10, 6, 2, with 1.5 steals per game. His defense is incredible. I mean, Ime Thompson really could be this team's future point guard when Fred VanVleet's not on the roster anymore. Because as of right now, Freddie's making a bag. He's going to be here for a little bit. But Ime Thompson could slide right into that starting point guard role and be insane. I mean, his athleticism is a lot like a Jalen Green, but a lot more effortless. Like, Ime Thompson's insane. As for Reed Sheppard, he's a rookie. How much playing time is he going to get? That is one of my biggest question marks, because this team is really, really deep with a lot of good talent and a lot of good young talent. Reed Sheppard wiped the floor in Summer League. That was awesome to see. Does that translate to real NBA games? I would like to lean towards yes. My only concern is there's a lot of guys that have to compete for the ball, and there's one ball on the court. Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith, Dillon Brooks, he's kind of an off-ball guy. It doesn't really matter. Ime Thompson, and then there's Reed Sheppard. There's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense there, and a majority of those guys I named are very much on-ball players. Yes, they can play off ball. Besides Jalen Green, we're waiting to see if that can work. The rest of those names, they can play off ball. But then you add Reed Sheppard to the mix. We're going to have to see how he works in this offense and if he really will get enough playing time to be considered a major piece of this team this year. I think he'll be a great piece off the bench, but I'm talking about like rookie of the year wise, I don't think he can win rookie of the year. I don't think he'll have the ball enough in his hands to prove that he could be rookie of the year. Because I've seen a lot of chatter that Reed Sheppard could win rookie of the year. For me, he's not in my top 3 just for this very reason. If he was on a team where they didn't have Fred VanVleet and he could slide right into that starting point guard role or that 6-man role, because you'd have Ime Thompson slide into that point guard role, I'd be like, possibly. But since they do have Fred VanVleet, they're paying him a lot of money. They're not paying him a lot of money to not do anything. He is going to be that pure point guard of this team as of right now. Reed Sheppard, I don't think he's a rookie of the year type of guy, but I think he'll make an impact for this team for sure. It'd just be a little bit depleted because of the heavy guard group they have on this team. But this squad is loaded. They could really run a 10-man rotation and have no issues. Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., Alperen Sengun, off the bench, Ime Thompson, Reed Sheppard, Tari Eason, Steven Adams, who I haven't even touched on. He's coming back from injury. We saw how well that worked with Ja Morant, creating open lanes to the basket or a great pick-and-roll situation with Steven Adams and Ja Morant. That's going to work just as good in Houston. Imagine him and Jalen Green, kind of like a Ja Morant archetype, going back and forth or creating open lanes to the basket. That is beautiful. But yeah, this bench unit is awesome. You could even go to the 11th guy there, Jeff Green, old head Jeff Green, or Cam Whitmore, Aaron Holiday. I love Jay Sean Tate. I love this team. It is really, really good. I wasn't super high on them really coming into the offseason, but then they add those picks. They get Phoenix's picks, and if there's a team that could be really dysfunctional, I think they'll personally be good. But now we're going to talk about the future a little bit. If there's a team that could become dysfunctional and want their own picks back, it's going to be the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, we don't need to talk about Bradley Beal. Houston doesn't need him. But if you look at two superstars in this league, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, both on Phoenix, both on a team that has expectations of winning. And if they don't start winning now, really this season, they could look to blow that up. And Houston owns their picks. So not only is Houston primed right now to have a really, really good young core that they could, if they choose to, just let it grow or organically and become really, really good in the next year, 2 or 3 years, and the guys will only be like 25, 23 years old. They could do it that way. But if they see an opening, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, the Suns suck this year, and they don't really meet expectations, Houston will be the number 1 team in trade conversations. More like, honestly, Phoenix would call Houston. Phoenix would call Houston because there's nothing more valuable than getting your own picks back. You want your picks, especially if you're going to be bad. Phoenix would call Houston. And Houston would be like, yeah, how's Kevin Durant and Devin Booker doing? And they have enough, not just in picks, but a package. Jalen Green, he could be on the move, especially like I was saying earlier, if he doesn't really fit alongside Sengun. I think you got to keep Sengun. It's hard to find a really, really good playmaking center in the NBA. That's why I went in the list of Jokic, Sabonis, and then you have Sengun. It's not very easy to find. I think you have to keep Sengun. He's moldable to any offense, whereas Jalen Green, as of right now, the way we've seen him play, if the offense is not running through him, he struggles. That's why he was struggling a lot last year when it was him and Sengun on the court together. But then when Sengun comes off the court, Jalen Green was a rock star. Is it a coincidence? I lean towards maybe no. Again, we'll have to see how it works out this year between the two. But if it becomes an issue again where Jalen Green, because he's not the focal point of the offense, starts to struggle, that's the cue that, yeah, maybe it's time to move off of him, because I think you have to keep Sengun. It's a lot harder to find really, really good centers like that can play offense from not just a scoring position, but also to run the flow of the offense in a playmaker. That's not easy. And when you have someone like that, I don't think you can get rid of him just like this. So Jalen Green, he might be the odd guy out here, but they have so many assets, again, from draft capital to players that if Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, or even a superstar we're not even thinking of right now, if they become available, the Houston Rockets are going to be the first ones to pick up that phone because they're kind of like a team, let me think, the Toronto Raptors in 2019. A completely different scenario. There was more veterans on that team, but they just plugged and played with Kawhi Leonard. Kevin Durant or Devin Booker could just plug and play with the Houston Rockets, and they would be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. Or another superstar. Maybe it's not one of those two, but any superstar that could really work well on this team, it's just a plug-and-play scenario. Especially if it's like Kevin Durant, he plugs right in. So anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video, and I am really interested to see how the Houston Rockets play this season. Are they close to a 50-win team? I don't know. I think they might hover around the same record. It would probably be a little bit improved, like closer to that 44, 45 win mark. But I think they'll be a playing team and maybe sneak into that 6 seed if they get close to that 50 win mark. I don't think they will right now, but they are primed and ready to either grow their young core organically or make a major splash at the right time. Anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video, and let me know down in the comments below. Should they grow this thing organically, or when the time is right, should they go out and snag a superstar to really plug and play into this core and become a true championship contender once again? I'll see you guys very soon, and like always, peace out.